So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again for Spanish Announce Table here on Nova Radio Northeast 102.5 FM with myself, Wayne Madden. You're very welcome once again Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock, and we're absolutely delighted and very privileged that you've invited us once again into your homes. No matter where you are, we hope that you're keeping very safe and very well, and that you're looking after each other during lockdown 2020 as this weird and wonderful series of events in many respects continues. Weird, of course, because we don't know what's going to happen or how long it'll go on. And wonderful because in many respects it gives you a chance to reflect, spend time with those you love, and obviously talk as well about your favorite topics, one of which is wrestling, and that's why we're here. So for the next 2 hours, we'll be trying to entertain you in the best way possible. And as always, if you have any comments or anything like that, send them to the email address studio@novaradio.co.uk, studio@novaradio.co.uk. Every comment we receive, we will aim to read out the following week. That's not part of some kind of weird comedy sketch. It's just because we're not doing the show live for obvious reasons. So we'll aim to read the comments out throughout the week and then next week. So at the moment, I don't think we have anything from last week, which is why I have no comments at this time. But what I do have are some fantastic co-presenters, so let me introduce them. Of course, the man with a plan, the man with the recording equipment, and someone who might possibly make next week's show live, fingers crossed, and no pressure at all. It is, of course, the wonderful Mr. Damien Stone. Hello to you.
Yeah, streamlined for aerodynamic effect.
That's it, absolutely. Those listeners listening to us on radio won't realise, of course, that this week Damien has decided to go for what they're commonly referring to on social media as the lockdown haircut. That is to say that he has just taken it all away. Is this the first time you've ever gone for a completely bald Kojak Slaphead III figure?
Not quite. No, we did a head shave in December for like after I'd let the hair grow for a couple of years.
Yes.
We did the Brave the Shave thing in December for
yes, of course,
for one of the pubs, and it was like I said, just when it started growing back in, I was like, well, I can't get this done professionally. I might as well just go back to default avatar. Unfortunately, default avatar is that of a freshly clubbed seal. So
actually, speaking of default avatar, I don't know. Obviously, through most of this lockdown, people have been fairly obsessed with TikTok. A guy who is quite good on TikTok, a great actor, Bruce Willis, has an account. And he was posting a video himself the other day of the different characters that he models as in Grand Theft Auto. So he's on his PlayStation and he's clicking the buttons down, and basically his clothes are changing from frame to frame based on what character you play him as. So when you said default avatar, I thought, oh, that's it. You know, it's that kind of Grand Theft Auto thing. Now, I know that obviously, Damien, for the benefit of those at home, again, you've obviously, all of your hair is gone. A man who wants to grow as much hair as possible is our other co-presenter, and it's Mr. James Chilvers. Hello, James.
Hi, Wayne. Thanks for having us. Yeah, it doesn't stop growing, unfortunately. It's a little bit, it's getting long.
It's good, though. Are you going to go for the whole sort of, Arctic explorer type thing? Are you looking to maybe? How long have you had that beard? And both.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
long
it's
in
this
length.
this long.
Okay.
I think this is the longest it's ever been. I can plait it pretty much. It's not very nice to see, but you can pretty much get a plait in there.
And for the benefit of those on radio, yes, indeed, it was a plait, and I can confirm that, and Damien's a witness, of course.
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we have a lot of wrestling to talk about, but just briefly, if I can ask James, when did you first start growing that phenomenal beard? I mean, when did you first? Was it like you were 15 and that was the kind of beard you had, or what was the story?
So when I was about 18, well, when I was at uni, 18, 19, 20-year-old, I couldn't grow a beard. I always had patches and it never grew in properly. And then, I don't know, over the past kind of 5 years, it's just kind of
magic.
The longer I leave it, the better it starts looking. It's a bit scraggly at the minute, but
fantastic.
Just got to work with it.
You do, absolutely. That's it. And would you ever consider going completely sort of shaving everything, the hair, the beards, getting the lockdown haircut?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if the missus would agree with that. I was thinking about doing a video where I come in from work and I'm like, oh, I'm absolutely shattered. I could sleep for 2 months, wake up and I've missed all of COVID and I wake up with this massive beard. But obviously, when I shave it off, film that bit with me cleanly shaven, going to bed and then waking up like this, just like, oh my God. I think it would work quite well.
I think that would be brilliant. Yeah. And again, that's something for TikTok, really.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we got to find our excitement in some way. So I mean, a lot of look, the train keeps moving. I mean, even though we're on lockdown and isolation and stay-at-home orders in the United States and claims about people shouldn't inject disinfectant, for God's sake, into their bloodstream. Former WWE Hall of Famer, thank you very much. But the thing is, right, all aside from that, some really decent stories emerging. One great story, Captain Tom, who, basically this man turns, on the day that we are filming this, he turns 100. So as of today, he is 100 years and 1 day old, as of the day you're listening and watching this video. So a serious happy birthday to Captain Tom, a World War II veteran, and he has been raising money for coronavirus by walking around his garden. And he is really the definition, I think, of a true superhero, a true superstar. And so the WWE, never wanting to miss any sort of PR moment, jumped on this opportunity with, of course, their current champion, who, of course, himself is UK-born and bred Drew McIntyre. And Drew was able to virtually and ceremoniously present Captain Tom with a beautiful customized WWE Championship belt, which is really nice, actually. It's really nice to see that happen.
Oh, definitely. Really nice gesture. I don't know how much of it is going to be relevant to Captain Tom, but I'm sure he'll be happy either way.
I think so, absolutely. I think it was a great birthday present, and I mean, I think definitely, no matter what, it's something that kind of says, look, here's a guy who's doing the best he can, making the best of a fairly dismal situation, and this man is 100, for God's sake. So, he's already survived, a world war. So I think massive credit to him. And as I say, happy birthday. And I don't know if that belt, I mean, it's interesting actually when they give belts like that, because I know they've done it a couple of times. They did it at Durham with the cricket. They gave a belt to the England cricket team when they played in Durham earlier this year. I don't know if that means that ceremoniously, is there like a, Lucas would probably tell us, but unfortunately he's not here, if there's like a title list of ceremonial champions in the same way that, I don't know, they award honorary doctorates or something, in that sense.
I'm sure they've done it with football teams in England, but they've also done it with ice hockey teams and basketball over in America as well. Whenever they win something big, they get like a title belt, basically, to say congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something I've seen happen a couple of times. I'm wondering if it's documented exactly how many. I mean, I'm sure it's documented somewhere, but in terms of whether they therefore become part of this honorary champions or something, or whether they, who knows. But yes, it's good. And Drew McIntyre, of course, who is still the champion. I mean, I know we've only been a couple of weeks from WrestleMania, but let's be honest, if we remember Kane, we remember that weirder things have happened in the spell of a night. So it's nice to still see Drew McIntyre as champion heading into Money in the Bank. And I can't ask for more. I mean, a great coup for British wrestling right there, I think, in general as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's great to see. It's great to see someone from this side of the pond.
Yes,
it's great having that position on the top of the pile, so to speak. I mean, I was going to say with with just one thing on the title belt there, I'm really glad they sent him the right one and didn't send him the Fiend belt, because that could have been
Happy 100th and the Fiend on the front.
Oh man, they should have sent him Daniel Bryan's hemp belt from earlier last year, and he just starts blazing it up, you know. And, man, we use this to get through the blitz, man. We'll do this now, you know. That's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. I'll get shot for saying stuff like that, I tell you. But no, I think, Daniel Bryan, there was a lot of talk. Sorry, not Daniel Bryan, of course. Drew McIntyre. Thank you. There was a lot of talk as well about him and Aleister Black doing a match together at WrestleMania, and then somebody had pointed out, well, if that happens, that's something ICW have already done. And you gotta kind of think that's a massive coup for British wrestling if a match like that were to go ahead.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's fantastic to see. I mean, obviously, Aleister Black, before he got to before he signed with WWE, he was all over the UK and all over most of Europe as well. With him being based out of Amsterdam being based out of Holland at the time, he got around Europe quite a lot, and the name that he used to work under, Tommy End, was really, was one of the sort of big ones that you'd hear about from the continent.
Yeah.
And I mean, to see him, like I said, to see him sort of come through, and again be heading towards the tops, potentially that match at Mania. I mean, it's going to be brilliant. I mean, have you seen the original one that ICW did?
No, actually, I haven't, and it's something I definitely should watch. I spent my time today watching some wrestling related, of course, but as you know, on the darkest corners of the web, wrestling related. But yes, I haven't seen that much. I was gonna say, did Drew McIntyre, am I right in thinking that it was Drew who faced the Bruiserweight at an NXT takeover a couple of years ago, and people had said that was a very high scale match, that when Pete Dunne started doing matches at NXT and WWE, that it was like ICW type events, because of course he'd done a lot of that stuff as well.
I'll be honest with you, I can't remember the match happening offhand. I've sort of dipped in and out of NXT UK. That's why
I must look into that, because I was almost, I mean, I have to be honest, I was almost positive that there was a number of those things, especially when the Bruiserweight, when they first brought the United Kingdom Championship to Raw, that was obviously a massive coup. And then the fact that he translated that by wearing that championship at the British events, that was obviously something that went over tremendously. I would like to think, as much as, I think Walter is a fine performer and he has done a number of events, one of which I've actually managed to see in Newcastle with Progress Wrestling. I would like to see the United Kingdom Championship, when this lockdown is over, being defended at British wrestling events. I would love to see that happen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's something that I would hope will happen again once the restrictions are lifted.
Yes.
And once we start getting British wrestling events again. I mean, obviously I know he's got his own deal over in his own thing over in Germany with his with WXW and such like.
Yes.
But it's like, I think it would be fitting for the title to be defended in the UK, since it is the UK Championship. Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's it's nice for it not to be forgotten, to be honest. So
absolutely,
it can be very, very easily in WWE, especially. I think it's more out of sight, out of mind. If something disappears, you tend to kind of go, oh yeah, wait a minute, wasn't there that thing? So.
Yeah.
But I think as well as that, it's worth obviously speculating, if you like. I must say, actually, just before I forget, I must say as well, massive credit to Full Tilt Wrestling. I know they've put up a couple of new matches on YouTube, one of which features Emily Hayden, and they've put a couple of bits and pieces up. So they're kind of releasing some exclusives over the web as part of lockdown. Have you guys been watching anything in particular from the archives or from British wrestling, or has lockdown given you an opportunity to go back and watch anything?
I watched the Hardy Boys against the Young Bucks the other day. That was good.
Oh, wow.
And Kevin Owens was on commentary.
Wow.
Yes, it was. Oh, I can't remember what the event was. I would have to have a look at what it was, but it was really strange.
Oh, wow. That's
seeing
fantastic.
them two wrestle each other, but with Kevin Owens as the commentator. Strange.
Well, I ended up, I watched a match earlier today with Terrorizer, of course, Triple H in WCW, and he was up against Brian Anderson, who was later the Road Dogg in WCW, and this was back in about 1993 or something. And it was fairly crazy, to be honest, to see the two of them, knowing the relationship that they would have in DX and the partnerships that they go on to form. It was kind of interesting to see both of them in WCW. I think the history of WCW in general, there's been a kind of historically, if I'm right, a lot of the stars of WWF got big and then went over to WCW because they were bought out for the prices of their contracts. So the Bret Harts, the Lex Lugers, the Hulk Hogans, the Scott Hall, the Kevin Nashes, etc. But then another generation of wrestlers who later became huge stars started out in WCW, sort of mainstream started out. So Jericho, Triple H, Stunning Steve Austin, The Undertaker, it was just kind of like a trading ground for so many years. But I thought it's always kind of cool to sort of go, oh, I know him, and of course, the people who are commentating on this match are like, here's Triple H in 1993, and he's good, but he's not really got great footwork. And I'm like, well, it looks fine to me. I mean, what would I know? Damien, have you been watching anything recently that's caught your eye during lockdown?
There's been a couple of things. There's one thing that I'm going to send out for a reactions video.
Okay.
At some point, it's going to be the same one for everyone that participates, because I just wanted everyone's other take on this, and it's one from a British archive. So I'm going to keep that one under wraps. But
fair enough.
Last night I was conversing with someone from South Africa, who messaged asking about becoming a wrestler, and I mean he'd asked about that before he revealed he was from South Africa.
Yes.
It's like this sort of partway down the conversation. I was like, well, originally I was like, okay, so whereabouts are you? If you're in Scotland, do you want to be heading to either Source or the Asylum or somewhere like that? And he's like, oh, because I'm in South Africa, so I hit the Google machine up and looked up a few South African like basically wrestling companies and wrestling schools, and thought, well, I'll send them the details across.
It's quite interesting, actually, because it's not the first time that's happened. We've had a couple of messages through the Spanish Announce Table Facebook. We had a young man in Nigeria a couple of months ago asking about becoming a wrestler and wanting hints and tips, and basically writing to us asking if we could recommend anywhere in Nigeria, which on the one hand almost seems kind of comical, but on the other hand it's quite an opportunity, because depending on how serious they are about following it up, you may be shaping somebody's future career choices or their path in life. So it's a hell of a bit of an advice to be given, to be honest. But I was always mesmerized that somebody had come across our website and gone, those guys could give me an idea. Yeah.
I mean, if the guy from Nigeria is indeed listening to this, then there's a fellow that wrestles under the name Kilimanjaro, who was working for Slam Force Wrestling in one or two events in South Africa. Apparently, he trains people as well in Nigeria. I'm not sure exactly what area of Nigeria though, because my geography fails me on that front.
So. It's truly global, isn't it? Because I imagine that, much like I've been told recently, actually, for those who have always been curious, that Nova Radio actually has, I mean, Nova Radio alone, this isn't even going into, and this isn't just for this show, but it's not even taking into account those who interact with our website. But I've been told that Nova Radio has between 8,000 and 9,000 listeners a month, and gets quite a substantial amount of hits, and is quite a prominent radio station. And it's not that I'm necessarily surprised, but I mean, I am in a sense. But I mean, when I see all the hard work they put into Nova, I'm not surprised. But it's it just took me back when I think of those figures. I think of maybe the likelihood of about 9,000 people actually listening to what, you know, this lunatic is saying. It's a bit weird, you know.
It's I mean, that's the magic of broadcasting now.
It is.
And it's obviously, it's much appreciated that the guys and girls and everyone who's listening are are welcoming us into their homes. You know,
absolutely, and I mean, wherever you are in the world, as I said on the top of the show, wherever you are in the world, give us an email, let us know. We'd love. I mean, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. But send us an email, studio@novaradio.co.uk. Let us know where you're listening to this show from. And I guarantee you, I will give a prize to the first person who emails in and says that they are legitimately listening from the Antarctica Research Station. If I can get somebody who is listening in the North or South Pole, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, that's where we've hit the time. But no, wherever you are, if you're in Rio de Janeiro, if you're in Hong Kong, if you're in, Malaysia, Australia, Ireland, wherever you are, give us an email, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Incidentally, if there is anyone from the Arctic Research Station listening, then you won't be going to Glacier's school.
You're kidding me. You're kidding me. No. Don't start that, huh? The Glacier Wrestling Federation, the GWF. I believe that stands for something else, actually.
I think so. I think there were two. There was Global and was it Global Wrestling and Georgia Wrestling?
I think it was Georgia. Yeah, I think Georgia was the one I was thinking of. The old territories. But there we go. So, as well as that, obviously lots going on in the wrestling world, despite the lockdown, despite the bizarre things that we're hearing from WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump, who continues to live in the White House. Nobody has seen the president for about 2.5, nearly 3 years now. So we're not really sure what's going on. I think it's been a bit longer, but no one's really sure what's going on. But he enjoys getting in front of the camera and saying his speeches every day. I think when kind of wrestling starts to return to normal, if you like, normal after the lockdown, how can you see this period affecting it? Because, of course, we've had quite a few sackings in the last week and a half from from WWE, and as well as that, obviously that takes its toll. But how do you guys sort of see lockdown affecting life on the road for wrestlers, life in stadium shows, just life in general? Is WWE going to come out stronger for this, or are they maybe going to come out a little bit weaker and have to play catch up?
I think that the WWE will definitely come out on the front foot. They'll be okay, I reckon. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of the shows, it is going to be a while before socially distancing yourself isn't the new normal thing to do. I think that's going to carry on for quite a while, where 2 meters apart, only a certain amount of people in a venue at once. I think that'll be closer to December time when that's lifted. But we never know, really, do we?
No, well, this is the thing, and I mean, from some of the comments on our Facebook page, Lucas was saying a couple of weeks ago that there's speculation that even WrestleMania next year, which is currently scheduled to be held in Hollywood, that may be affected, and actually it may be that WrestleMania will also be held without a crowd, because really at this moment in time, it could take a long time. I mean, it's one thing to ease a lockdown. It's another thing to allow events which have over a certain amount of people present. And I mean, if you sold tickets to a WWF or WWE event, rather, where there were only 500 or 1,000 people allowed in the arena, it would sell out like that. So, I mean, they have to obviously be very careful about the idea of, you don't want to have a situation, I suppose, where you say, yeah, it's fine, we'll just do a couple of shows in a subway like we did in the 90s, or we'll go to the old ECW hall and we'll do a couple of retro shows for a smaller audience, because, of course, that alienates quite a lot of fans who cannot get into the bigger house shows where I assume WWE make a lot of their bread and butter throughout the year at house shows.
Yeah, I mean, between the house shows and the merch sales at house shows and all the rest of it, I think it's going to be a strange one. I mean, WWE's TV deals are kind of propping them up at the moment. If we're not so much propping them up as giving them a massive boost.
Yes,
which is giving them, sort of carte blanche to be able to do what they're doing at present, and still putting out shows with, admittedly the limiting costs and such like, but the house shows are, as you say, the main sort of bread and butter for any normal sort of wrestling company. It's like new fans every are waited to see you. They're going to be eager for the tickets and will snap them up at higher than higher than regular prices. And as I say, you got your merch and whatever whatever sort of extras you can pull from that. And I mean, I think one of the big things that's going to come out of this more than anything is sort of the expectations that a lot of fans are going to have for the product when it goes back into arenas. Because if this, I mean, judging by the kind of I know this is going to sound like a little bit bad, but it's not intended to. The sort of attention span that wrestling sometimes caters to.
Yes.
If we've got a long-term situation where this becomes the norm, and what was before sort of starts to be seen as forgotten or sort of lesser because it was moved away from, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
In some eyes, I think. It's things like things like the cinematic matches and such. Like, obviously, you can't do that in front of a live audience.
Yeah, of course.
And I think if people go to an event expecting something like that, or see an event coming and think they're going to get that, it could potentially be a little bit damaging for the product as a whole.
No, I can definitely see your point, actually, because there was an article, actually, funny enough, on the BBC News website today, and it was talking about shows like Graham Norton, which are normally filmed in front of a live studio audience, and it was posing a question as to whether a show is actually better without an audience. And when they've removed the live studio audience, that some fans have actually noted on social media that they prefer the show, because they can laugh at their own pace and they're not feeling goaded by the audience to react, and that they can react as their own individual selves. So it's quite interesting to note that in many respects, like everything, the first time I saw SmackDown without an audience, I thought, this is kind of like watching a secret theater rehearsal. It kind of feels like I'm watching something I shouldn't be watching, as if a fan or as if a member of staff has leaked a copy of their rehearsal for the show out. And I thought, that's what I must be watching. And then the longer it's gone on, the more I've kind of thought, well, you'll just, as you say, you'll just get used to this to an extent.
Yeah.
And especially with what they're doing with stuff like Money in the Bank, if they're working their way up that building, getting to the roof, doing that kind of interactive sort of pay-per-view, you'll almost want something like that more than you'll necessarily want every single pay-per-view to be the same thing. There was an argument, and again, it might fall on the same ears or the same argument, but there was talk of the Premier League, and obviously there was serious trouble when the Premier League was halted, and people said, well, who goes up, who wins, who stays down, what the hell happens? And on the one hand, though, someone else said, well, why not just play the games behind closed doors? Because with the television rights, having the audience, having a crowd at St. James's Park, for example, is just, it's almost immaterial. I mean, obviously it means something to the club and the history, but in terms of revenue, it means nothing because they make more money from the sponsorships and the television rights. So in one sense, you could almost argue that if it weren't for the house shows, WWE could potentially be like, well, it's the TV rights that are keeping us paying the staff. So the crowds, as long as they're buying merch offline or they're getting it from somewhere else, the crowds are inconsequential. In fact, them attending the shows is possibly more of a hindrance.
In terms of football, the reason why they haven't done it behind closed doors is because they said there would be anywhere between 550 to 1,000 people still there, even though it's behind closed doors.
Right.
And that's like media, that's all the different people that make up a match that will be behind the scenes.
Wow.
It's so they would still be exceeding the limit, even without the 52,000 fans in the stadium.
That's interesting, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I think from a profit loss margin, obviously, you know, people are very eager. It's like when a musician has a physical CD and the musician is like, I have this album, people need to buy it. Go out and buy it, make sure you buy it. Or when a game is released, I mean, I've read articles which said that video games that have been released in the last couple of weeks, people are pre-ordering them. And because they were pre-ordering them, they can't get them, you know, other people are going, oh, I want this game. It's going to be out soon. That's well, you can't get it. It's sold out everywhere. So they're buying it digitally. And buying it digitally means that you don't have to go to the expense of printing a copy of that game and shipping it. So in many respects, digital sales increasing means a benefit to, you know, in many respects means a benefit to to businesses, because they're not actually spending the money to create physical sort of physical costs. So I suppose in one way, I don't know. I can't imagine WWE are saving money, or are they? I mean, what you know, are WWE, you know, they've obviously let a lot of people go to save bills. Are they kind of saving more money by not actually organizing house shows, I suppose?
I mean, it's like if you're looking at sort of a standard week in the WWE on top of your televised shows, you've probably got sort of 4 or 5 extra house shows there. So I mean, the TV rights are, I mean, the amount of extra shows that they've got there, and because the roster was as big as it was, they were able to run more house shows. You know, by splitting down the brands and such like, and so you know, it's like have I don't know, sort of like somewhere in Massachusetts, you got you got like your raw, your main sort of raw characters. You know, elsewhere elsewhere down in New Jersey or something, you've got your SmackDown characters and the rest of it. And whereas with NXT doing live events as well, you're looking at potentially 3 a day for 3 or 4 days of the week. On top of the video tapings, it's not going to be comparable to the revenue that Fox has given them. But it's certainly gonna be a big chunk of money that they're losing out on by not having the house shows there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting because, AEW in particular are a federation who, having only started, presumably they could take a massive financial hit from something like this, which is kind of the reason why they needed to more or less shut down as much of their activity as they could.
Yeah, I mean, with AEW, the whole sort of Khan family thing appears to be sporting events, whether it's Fulham in the Premier League, whether it's is it Jacksonville that they've got in the
Oh yes,
I think,
in Florida, yes, yeah.
and obviously AEW itself, in that it's all it's all being hit at the same time for the same reasons. So there is potentially quite a large loss of revenue there, but I think with AEW, more the sort of catchment of fans that are watching that are probably buying into it on Fight TV.
Yes, yes.
And it's going to come in dribs and drabs, but it's I mean, between that and sort of whatever's there in the savings and whatever Tony's dad pumps into it, it is going to it is going to take a hit. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. I mean, what do you see happening, speculatively wise with British wrestling? So the idea of sort of, as we come out of the lockdown, as maybe measures are reduced, should we necessarily go back to the idea of having 2-3 shows every weekend in the Northeast? Will that even be allowed? Will it be minimizing certain events in certain places? And so will companies either be forced to collaborate to put on one event, or will it be a case of then needing to, draw straws as to who gets to put the event on that weekend?
There might be in terms of distance. So within like a 5-mile radius, we can't have more than 2 a week or something like that. It'll probably be a blanket statement over all events rather than just wrestling. It'll be like gigs. It'll be all sorts, won't it? Really.
I mean, I know at the moment that the Irish government in particular have banned all events over 5,000 people from happening until the end of August 2020. Now, the interesting thing about that, of course, is that even events under 5,000, a lot of concert promoters are voluntarily choosing to reschedule those shows because they don't necessarily want to encourage 1,000 people to turn up for a particular event. So the Irish government, in a sense, has said, well, events over 5,000, no way. But I think places like Over the Top Wrestling, in Ireland, will probably say, well, look, we're not going to bring 5,000 people in, but why would we necessarily then endanger sort of lives, or why would we necessarily stoke the fire by still holding our events? And I think maybe lockdown will be eased in some way, but restrictions will mean that live events might not be possible. So perhaps some new matches will happen from places like Full Tilt or Northside Frontier Wrestling or some of the other federations that we've had on the show before, but maybe behind closed doors, do you think? Or what would you rather see shows filmed on YouTube, new shows behind closed doors, than nothing at all? Or is it a case of it's not going to be the same without the audience in terms of British wrestling?
I mean, I'll be definitely up for seeing that. Seeing that. I mean, obviously, it's going to be down to each sort of each promoter whether or not they go ahead and do that. I mean, it'll be good to see. I mean, the crowd is a big part of it, but normally I only find that when I'm actually in the crowd myself, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I mean, it's. I mean, I've sort of watched videos from various training schools and such like before, and sort of been there when there's been no sort of crowd reaction to anything. And indeed, I was there for the last ever title show in Darlington, where there were about 13 people in the audience. The experience there.
It's a real shame, that, to be honest.
I know it was, because it's an absolute shame, because title's gone from absolute strength to strength since then.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is the thing. It all depends on the venues as well, because I mean,
yes.
how many of the British wrestling shows do you see that are not either inside of a licensed pub, club, or
yes,
or something of that
of
nature?
Course.
You know, short of I mean, I think Full Tilt could potentially do something at the Anarchy Brewery, but you know, I mean, then again. Because then again, that's more of a working brewery than an actual tap house, you know. But again, it's just a case of it's a case of trying to get all the pieces to fit, and it's an extremely difficult thing to do with the way British wrestling is over here. I mean, I think is it Fight Club Pro that work out of a warehouse in.
I believe so. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They could. I mean, they could potentially. I mean, I could potentially see that, but see that sort of going ahead, because obviously that's, you know, that's not an art. You know, that's not technically a pub or a club. It's a warehouse that could open up in Academy, which is again just essentially an industrial unit.
Yes. Yes.
You know, it'll be. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if anyone actually goes ahead and tries it.
I'd love to see a kind of a backstage assault Fight Club type event. So I'd love to see the idea where a load of British wrestlers would have matches through social media, where they'd be kind of discreetly filmed, like fighting at a bus stop, or where they'd be discreetly filmed like in Tesco and beating each other with milk or something. So like the idea of, you know, one wrestler nips down to get some cigarettes or something at a local newsagent, and another guy comes in and just smacks him over the head with a can, and it's being filmed on someone's mobile phone. And I know in a certain extent that might encourage sort of copycat behavior, and it might maybe spark, you know, calls of vandalism and whatnot. But I kind of think that'd be a bit funny, like this kind of like Fight Club sort of wrestling event, or the idea of maybe a wrestling event which embraces social distance to such an extent that, yes, there has to be close quarters combat because it's wrestling, but at the same time, there's no real audience except the idiot who was filming it on his mobile phone, you know?
There was a series from that Rice put out a while ago. Between
was there?
Big Joe and I think it was Charlie Davis, the CW Davis, the Alpha athlete. It started with like a 24/7 hardcore title defense in a McDonald's.
Oh my God!
There was another one where they were in a basically empty gym, where one of them was working out. It was an absolutely hilarious one where they were in a pool. They were at a swimming pool, and it was you got like a table goes past on polystyrene floats, and
classic bash at the beach '96 kind of thing, you know. Yeah. Well, we didn't have the beach, but damn well we can have the pool, you know.
Absolutely, mate. It's up there on Rise's YouTube. Definitely.
Definitely. I must try and check that out, because I just have this like vision of, you know, you would find wrestlers who maybe live together, so they wouldn't be violating the social rules, and they would organize to have it filmed between them. And so like they'd end up, you know, I don't know, they'd end up kind of going to walking down the street, doing their walk in the park or something, and suddenly getting attacked in the very 24/7 type championship thing that's been going on, but you'd make a pay-per-view out of it. I think, kind of mark my words, when this lockdown is over, you'll see a bit of footage coming out going, oh, I've got this match that we recorded, and it's like, did you record this when it was illegal to do that? No. I tried to record this yesterday.
earlier today.
Sure, I only recorded this earlier today, you know, and someone's walking by going, Jesus, it's a chilly April, isn't it, lads? You know, put your shirt on, for God's sake, you know, it's cold. You know? I could see that happen.
There's got to be, I mean, I think, was it Veda Scott and Speedball Bailey? I think they exchanged some kind of title in the in the corridor of the room where the hotel room was.
Oh, for God's sake!
And there were some little bits from Fight Factory in Lincoln where the owner and the head trainer who were sort of in kayfabe sort of at each other's throats, and then, you know, like, obviously they were just doing like bits where they were sort of hanging out around the house and that, and then like one of them was pinning the other one while they were asleep, you know, and like and like it just sort of like someone just comes around the corner, gets hit in the head with a frying pan, and then like pinned in the kitchen or something.
Become massively disrespectful, though. You know, it could get to the point where they're in an NHS hospital beating each other up, and it's like, we're trying to save this man's life, and it's like, no, I have a title to win. Get out of my way, doctor. You run the risk of it, you know. Stop that. Be good fun. Be good fun.
Oh, definitely.
But did I hear right that Gerald Briscoe was in the news this week?
Yes, apparently he's been furloughed. He was part of the guys who part of the list of people who've been furloughed.
And of course, Gerald Briscoe, a former WWF Hardcore champion and a former WWE 24/7 champion. Although neither of those titles were won in any way with any sort of pride. Obviously, Briscoe had a fantastic career and was long retired, by which point he kind of became like sort of one of Vince McMahon's lackeys, I suppose you could call him, and got involved in the Attitude Era storylines and slightly thereafter, and then had some moderate success recently as part of a Raw anniversary show when he managed to appear with Pat Patterson, and they managed to win a 24/7 championship title reign each. I kind of
wearing evening gowns this time.
Yeah, that's it. That was like Judgment Day 2000 or something. That was about 20 years ago now, and I was like, I mean, he's 72, which means the man at this time, you know, at the time he must have been about 52 then, basically, and he would have been, you know, in an evening gown in an arena full of fans, beating up another 52-year-old man. So. But I kind of got to imagine when it comes to people like Gerald Briscoe, because of the friendship level maybe that he had with Vince McMahon, or the amount of time he'd been with the company, you sort of have to believe, in a sense, I take it, that you have to kind of believe it was part of his decision?
Potentially. I mean, I don't know exactly what he was doing with the company at that time.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm assuming that he looked after. That's for certain.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, you know, I imagine there's a couple of golden handshakes going around, and he'll be well looked after. Those of you out there in Radioland won't realise that we seem to have lost James's camera. Whether James is still with us, it hasn't said that he's left the chat, so I get the impression that he's still there. James, can you hear me at all? I'll take that as a no.
I think you might have just temporarily need to nip away from camera or something.
Fair enough. Some temporary something going on. It's mad when even when we try to pre-record the show live, there's always things going on, always things happen. But no. What in God's name are we talking about? Well, obviously Gerald Briscoe, that was his sort of last hurrah. I imagine at the age of 72, he won't be looking to do a Mae Young and return in 10 years. But certainly, anything else coming out in the world of wrestling? Any particular furloughed stars that you're sorry to see go from WWE? I imagine every one of them at some way or another will have a career in another promotion, and if anything, having WWE on their CV has if nothing else, has improved their standing in the community, that they were actually a part of the business.
I read earlier on that they've released Cain Velasquez.
Right.
So he only had one match, but they were saying that he's had that many injuries, they've just had to get rid.
Yeah. That's a real shame, because he was brought in with the intention, I think, at the time of being a big draw within the company. It was in much the same way as I remember. I think it was Chronic were the tag team that were managed by Steven Richards many years ago. And one of them, I think, was the Undertaker's best man at the Undertaker's wedding, and they were very well connected within the wrestling business. And they only had sort of one match on SmackDown and one match on a pay-per-view against the Undertaker and Kane, and that was that. They were out. They were gone. It was a fairly, high-profile departures like that. Obviously, it's one thing for a wrestler who was maybe down the ranks to sort of fade off television or to not get the jump. I'm not trying to offend any of these people, but some of the furloughs that were coming out, I was looking at these names going, I have no idea who these people are. I've never even heard of them. But in one or two cases, especially with the likes of Cain Velasquez, I'd go, hang on a second, he was actually meant to be like that was meant to be a major selling point at one point very recently for WWE.
Yeah, I think they're going to go for him and Brock Lesnar or something, weren't they?
That's it.
But I think he was fairly popular down in AAA, so he'll probably, and if he does want to pursue wrestling, he'll probably end up back in Mexico more than anything else.
Because he was brought in at the same time as who was the guy in AEW who came in for the first event at AEW, the main star who they were going to cross over to wrestling. I don't know why I want to say Tyler Bate. I don't know why, but I know who I'm thinking of. I just can't picture the name.
So I think I remember Tyson Fury turned up on Raw and had a go at Braun Strowman.
Mm-hmm.
AEW did bring someone in, but I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
I watched their first show as well.
I know, I did. I watched it myself. That almost seems like such a long time ago as well, because I was reading, speaking of AEW, that Chris Jericho has given an interview very recently where he's basically said that he wants his last ever match to be against Lance Storm, who was Jericho's first ever opponent and was also his former tag team partner back when Jericho was starting out. To which my answer was, well, can we have the match tomorrow and get it over with then? But, I would, Lance Storm, a great performer, somebody who had a fairly sort of funny gimmick, they tried to make him funny at WWE. But again, I think an example of where you have phenomenally good wrestlers who are completely underutilized, because WWE always has maybe 10 or 15 people who they focus about 60-70% of their airtime on. And so it's very difficult to stand out among that sort of small pool. And once somebody's in that pool, like Triple H, you're talking about the best part of 25 years of that person being in that. Because, 20 years ago, Triple H was a main event star. And obviously, he's still very much involved as a director of the company. But I think, say what you want about anybody else, it's very difficult to see someone. Bray Wyatt would be another example. Bray Wyatt is a phenomenal entertainer as far as I'm concerned. I have a bit of a theory at the moment that maybe Bray isn't as fit as he would like to be, and that's maybe part of the reason that he's not wrestling as such. But discounting that, I would say that, it would be very difficult for Bray to fall out of favor. So even somebody who doesn't necessarily wrestle matches week in, week out, they are still very much a focus of the company. And once you're in that sort of top 10 or top 15, you're almost kind of made for life with WWE. They have always been a federation that focus around the collective of people.
Well, people like Randy Orton, for example, as well. He must be coming up to like 18 years now, 17, 18, I would say.
Easily. I mean,
gotta be in the WWE.
I mean, he just turned, was it 40 he turned last week or the week before? I think they mentioned it was his 40th birthday. It was a milestone for him. And I mean, he is very much, he's probably, I mean, when he started, obviously, as the apex predator, he was very much the idea of, this is the thoroughbred, third generation wrestler, and the absolute, there was nothing from any other federation. He was 100% WWE, in the same way that AJ Styles, to a certain extent, was pure TNA. So, of course, the idea of like Randy at that time was that he was the number one performer. And I was very, very lucky to see Randy Orton wrestle actually in Newcastle a couple of years ago. And I also got the chance, not at the same show, but subsequently got the chance to see Triple H wrestle. So to see both of those men, and he wasn't actually meant to be on that card, if I remember correctly. It was meant to be The Undertaker.
Yeah, I'm sure. Did me and you not work together when that event happened?
Potentially, I think if we did,
I remember we're talking about both going to that.
Maybe it was either just before or it was just after, but yeah, I remember that because again, The Undertaker was meant to be on, and then for whatever reason that didn't happen. And you kind of think, well, hang on, when you get rid of a character, when you get rid of an entertainer the caliber of The Undertaker, how are you going to replace him? And sure enough, Triple H sort of almost took the hit on that tour and went, listen, I'll do it, and there were few who would complain and go, well, he isn't worth the money, because you were getting the opportunity to see the game live in person, so.
Yeah, I think that was the event where I got a ticket outside from this random guy, bought a ticket on the door, and I was like 2 rows from the front.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because the person you were sitting next to were like, where did you get your tickets from?
Yeah, and I said I bought them from a guy, and she went, I just gave him them for free because my daughter couldn't make it. And I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't care.
That's amazing, like, that she puts an ad out and goes, look, my daughter can't make it. Does anyone want free tickets to the wrestling, thinking that she'll help a father and his son. The dad turns up with the kid and goes, this is really good of you. Thanks so much for the tickets. Well, we'll be sitting next to you, so we'll see you inside. Yeah, I'll see you then. Anyone buying or selling tickets there? Anyone buying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it was 80 for 2 tickets.
Oh wow.
One was 2 rows from the front and the other one wasn't too far away, to be fair.
Jesus. That's unreal. There's been some good shows though in Newcastle over the years. I mean, there was one show I saw years ago where Sheamus and the New Age Outlaws teamed up as part of a 6-man tag at the Metro Arena. There was another event I went to, an NXT event, that was absolutely fantastic. Just because it was an NXT event, it was a great atmosphere. There was the one with Triple H. It's funny when you kind of think back and go, what were the events like? Obviously, there was an event last year with Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns and a number of others sort of at the Metro Arena again. So they always sort of find a way of bringing it out of the bag. I think it's when you spend so much time watching something on television and then actually go to see it live and go, hang on, this is real. It's like, wait a minute, this exists. It's not just sort of repeated videotapes in your mind or something.
I mean, I've only attended 3 wrestling events at the arena.
Okay.
The first one was the WCW 2000 tour.
Yes.
That was a interesting night. That I mean, there was still loads of empty seats there as well.
Yes.
But it was just a brilliant night out. Then there was Insurrection. It was the one just after Freddie Blassie had passed on.
That's right. And they put that on a DVD, didn't they? They actually released that. You can see that somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be on the network, or that might be.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I've seen it
Okay.
on the network, definitely. Yeah. I think the card was quite good as well.
I think those Insurrection pay-per-views, I remember the one held in Manchester, because I think the benefit of when they used to do the pay-per-view, first of all, because it was on pay-per-view, but secondly, because they used to do just one show. So when they did a Rebellion or an Insurrection or a One Night in the UK show, for the most part, it was fairly decent. I think there's one example back in the 90s, though, of where they did a show in the UK and they lost the Undertaker's luggage. So we actually had to wear a pair of jogging pants to the ring. And he comes out in these ridiculous purple pants. And people were always wondering, why did that happen? And the truth is, they lost the Undertaker's luggage. So he was flying into Manchester Airport and they lost one of his bags.
You'd think they could have just gone to like a custom shop and got them to make them some clothes up.
Well, you'd imagine, but I mean, I think this was at a time when it wasn't as easy, if you like, in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
I don't think they had the money because, of course, back sort of people again, I suppose it's easy to forget that around 96, 97, 98, WWE were kind of struggling to being second place after WCW. I'm kind of curious, though. I mean, I don't remember it myself, probably because I don't think they ever came to Ireland. But did WCW ever really tour the UK? Did they ever do anything like that?
They did one small tour back when it was on ITV in '93 and all that.
Okay.
They did I think 4 nights in around the sort of 2000 time.
Okay.
They did go across Europe with that as well, because there is a show that I've seen from them that was over in like some small place in Germany.
Right.
There's a really good match with Fit Finlay on that one as well. But yeah, they did that tour around, like I said, the whole Jeff Jarrett era and that. I mean, but obviously that was its dying days. I don't know how well the ones in the other cities went, but I think they were originally going to aim to try and tape Nitro or Thunder at one of these ones. It might have been either the Manchester or London ones.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. I must look into that, just because obviously, I mean, the only thing I remember that ever came close was the old World Wrestling All-Stars tour that I went to back in 2001, 2002, somewhere in that time frame, and it was pretty much WCW and a lot of disgraced at the time WWF stars. So the Road Dogg was there because he'd left, and Brian Christopher was there because he had left on the back of Jerry Lawler being fired or Jerry Lawler quitting over the cat. So there was there was a lot of stuff going on at the time that meant Jeff Jarrett was basically able to get a load of really talented people together, and if not talented, at least well known enough that they were packing out stadiums.
Yeah, I mean, with that one, if I remember rightly, we weren't originally going to go to it, and then we got a really good deal on tickets very close to it after we found out that Shark Boy was on it.
Oh my God! Okay.
We were watching WCW on Channel 5, and then Shark Boy turns up, and we're just like, me and mate, we're just sat there and absolutely laughing our heads off at this whole sort of thing, and we it got to the point where we thought, right, we'll get the tickets, we'll have a few jars beforehand, and then go over and just sit and
abuse the audience. Yeah.
We were there wearing felt tip coloured in blue cardboard shark fins on our heads at one point.
Wow. I'll tell you. What must have happened? What happened? Did you try and get into the ring yourself and just kind of stand back? I can do this,
No. We were very respectful to the rest of the audience. I mean, it was. There's one thing I do remember from that was the one like we kept on obviously when people were coming around putting his hand up to sort of have the face that sort of goes down the aisle and tags everyone's hand on the way,
Yeah.
The one person that actually ended up tagging his hand was Spider Nate Webb, who then got like literally is straight after he tagged the guy's hand got completely wiped out by Perry Saturn out of nowhere.
Amazing. I must tell a very quick story actually of when I went to a WWE event in 2012 at the Metro Arena, and I ended up getting a load of tickets for this event because I worked for a charity at the time, and we were helping a couple of disadvantaged youths basically attend certain events. And WWE, I had managed to get a contact in there, and they had very kindly sort of offered a load of tickets, and we were able to bring a load of people down. And for whatever reason, wherever we ended up sitting, there were a couple of seats empty just before us as the show was about to start. And these three young women, who must have been in their early 20s, they were dressed for a night out clubbing. And they were all very glamorous young women. And they sat down in the seats and sort of, obviously you can imagine there's a couple of teenage lads there. And, quite early on, like the girls are getting, the lads' attention. And it's sort of like, look, lads, concentrate on the wrestling and ignore these young women. Now, these particular women, they were drinking Prosecco. And I know this because they told me. And they also informed me that they worked for a sales company. And the lads who had won the sales target for that evening had been given free tickets to the wrestling. But apparently these lads, whatever company they were too macho. They were too much of men's men to accept these tickets. So the girls had decided that they would take the tickets and make a girls' night out of it. But of course, they didn't understand wrestling. They didn't follow wrestling. They didn't know anything about it. They just figured there was free drink and there was an opportunity to go to this arena. So, of course, they're getting absolutely twisted. And at one point, these two men in the ring, I don't even remember what match it was, but all I can remember is that the girls got quite excited and were basically, why is he doing that? Why is he throwing him into the turnbuckle? Why is he getting up on top of him? What's he going to do to him now? And you suddenly sort of realized, I think it was my phrase to them at one point was, how exactly did you get tickets for this event? Did you mistakenly stumble here, believing it was a fashion thing or something? But they left during the interval, and they never actually came back after the interval. So I never found out what happened to them. Which for a lot of the lads who I was looking after that evening, that was a great disappointment to them that they didn't come back after the interval. But it was quite interesting. I remember Natalia Hart was there actually, and did the first match after the interval was the women's match. But I thought it was absolute madness. Like just the idea of somebody turning up who basically just didn't know what the hell was going on or where they were, or even that they were probably in the right event.
Yeah.
But there you go. That's about a non-story. I mean, I suppose when I started that, you probably thought someone would be shot or something, but unfortunately not. As they say in Bill and Ted, San Dimas High School football rules. Everyone cheers. But yes, any strange stories from WWE shows that you've been to? Obviously, Damien, I know that you've told us about wearing shark fins on your head, so it probably doesn't get any weirder than that. James, would you like to top anything? There's
been a couple of good ones. So the last one that I went to, which was the one where Triple H took over from The Undertaker. Can you remember when Chris Jericho was in the ring and everyone was chanting "stupid idiot" at him?
Yes.
Yeah, that was hilarious because it was as if you were to where I was sat anyway. I was like 100 meters away from him.
Yes.
So I could see his reaction, and I could hear exactly what he was saying back to the crowd, and it was so funny. He was so quick and witty, and he loved bantering with the audience. It was class. It was so good. And then I remembered another event I went to, which was the WWE one, and at the time I was a massive Batista fan. I don't even know why. I must have been at that age where I thought Batista was amazing. I made a cardboard sign with a heavyweight title with Batista's name on, and
Amazing.
he was in a triple threat with Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio for the title, and he lost it. He lost it to Rey Mysterio, and I bought a Rey Mysterio T-shirt on my way out.
Wow.
I was just like, well, he won. I'll buy a Rey Mysterio T-shirt. I must have only been about 10 or 11.
God, to see the title change hands, that's fairly decent.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did.
Yeah, that's fairly cool. That's all right. Because I know John Morrison won the 5-star championship in Newcastle. I know that has that changed hands twice in Newcastle. And one time was when John Morrison managed to win it at 5-star. So I know
WWE went through a stage where they were letting titles change hands at house shows and then just kind of recapping it on Raw or SmackDown, just saying, oh, this happened through the week.
It happened a couple of times in the 90s with the Intercontinental title as well. There were a few times it changed on tag teams. But I mean, I'll be honest with you in terms of the folks out in Radioland as well. I haven't been keeping track of what time we're on at all in that respect. And to be honest, time has probably flown since we've been enjoying ourselves so much.
I think it's at an hour and a half now.
Okay, so I think with that being the case, it might be time to draw the conversation to a natural conclusion so that everybody involved in the show can not only get a good night's sleep, but they can also, prepare for next week when we'll be talking about Money in the Bank as well as many other things coming up. And we can also do our reaction videos and tell you what we've been up to during lockdown and whatever else madness happens. And obviously my video seems a hell of a lot better this week, and the audio probably sounds better, and the reason is because I have a brand new phone, which is great.
I didn't ask which phone did you go for.
I got an iPhone 6s Plus in the end. Actually, I got quite a good deal on it secondhand on eBay, and I know that they tell you should never buy phones secondhand on eBay, but this one in particular turned up in quite decent nick, and the photos described it fairly well, and the seller said that they would send it, recorded next day delivery and all that. But when it turned up today, I was blown away by the sheer size of it. It is a great phone.
It is a lot bigger than the one that you've got. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic screen size. So I love that, and obviously it's a little bit more powerful, so it means I can actually use some apps that were just not compatible with the old phone. So that's good. The message here is do drop your phone out of a kitchen window, and if you do, you can buy a new one. No, don't do that, actually.
Always buy insurance. That's the moral of this story.
Yeah. But of course, as the coronavirus has taught us, not all insurers will actually pay out for the coronavirus. They will simply refer to it as government legislation. A number of interesting consumer stories this week, actually, which have nothing to do with wrestling, which I won't therefore repeat, but some people are paying quite a high amount of money for a wedding that they will never have, and primarily it's because they have to agree to the terms and conditions with the venue and then later find out, unbelievably, that the insurance will not pay out to cover the cost because the coronavirus is exempt from the insurance. So it's quite fascinating.
I'm surprised they haven't classed it as an act of God.
It's interesting, isn't it? I thought it would have fallen under that category. But there we go. But at the moment, that's about all I have to say. So personally, I want to thank Nova Radio once again for putting up with us and for allowing us to broadcast another show, and to thank to Dean and Neil at the station for all the work they're doing in keeping the station running through these uncertain times. And indeed, of course, to Damien Stone, who has not only appeared on tonight's show, but is also recording the audio and will work tirelessly not only to get that audio up, but also get the video up to all of you, and does a hell of a lot of work behind the scenes that we should pay him for, but unfortunately we haven't got the money to do so.
That's okay. Honestly, the where I work at the minute is paying me to do nothing, so
I would keep that to yourself. No, this show was broadcast. This show is going out coast to coast. But we're live coast to coast. No, but I would also thank as well James Chilvers for being here this evening, and it's an absolute pleasure once again to see you back and shouting about wrestling and sharing memories with us and whatnot.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us again.
That's no problem. And of course, to Rob and Lucas and Neil and Liam and Christopher, who were unable to be with us this evening, but of course a combination of those gentlemen will no doubt be back as part of next week's show and shows in the future. Because of lockdown and because of what's going on, it's quite difficult not only to get people together at the same time, but also to record a show which has more than 4 or 5 people together, both for audio quality reasons and also for video quality reasons. So we appreciate you bearing with us. I know fans of the show will know that regularly we try and fit 13 large men into a small studio in Newcastle. That hasn't been happening lately, and in many respects it's a blessing, but it's also something that means we can't always bring you as big a show as we'd like to. But I think from Nova Radio and Northeast 102.5, we will bid you adieu and thank you very much for listening. And of course, if you're still listening to Nova, we should be doing coming up next, no doubt, is Damien with his own show, and he has an. Actually, is it not? No, not anymore.
No, Lee Lamb is here with the Stone Dead Rock show.
Fantastic.
I did sneak on in the odd times when there was a little bit of a volume there.
Yes.
Sort of hijacked the stream somewhat.
But you are definitely doing a show though on Nova at another time.
Yes, Friday afternoons, midday till 2 p.m. First hour's news, sort of news stories from somewhere, anywhere, and nowhere. Second hour is a feature hour, which I haven't yet written, so I'll figure that out on the day.
Fantastic. Through the magic of radio, no doubt by the time Friday arrives, maybe you'll watch this video on Saturday and go, hang on, his show was last night. I'm going to go back and listen to it again on the listen again function. And he will have written it in the past. Isn't technology wonderful? Right. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a good evening out there in Radio Land, and have a good evening out there in Video Land as well.
Yeah, thanks for having us. See you there.
No worries. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.